Hey, how's it going, guys? We were talking some Penn State football today. A lot of news to cover over the past week. A lot of things have happened in Penn State football. Really, just that horrible loss against Iowa. Penn State's a better team, in my opinion. Um, from the jump, you have the interception with Clifford, which obviously was bad. Iowa, I'll give them credit; they're able to create turnovers. Uh, they're able to ball hawk, but even with that, Penn State was able to dominate that game. They're up 17-3 despite Clifford throwing two interceptions. Iowa's offense wasn't able to do anything until the second half. And it was just one of those games where you could tell Penn State was a better team until Clifford went down. As soon as Clifford went down in the second quarter, that's when momentum changed, and Penn State just was not able to score very much. They only got a field goal in the second half, and that's it. I mean, they were a pathetic offense. I've never seen a team go from being a really good offense to not even being able to snap the ball. And it was pathetic that it had to be that way. Uh, it's one of those things that when you look in the off season and you wish you could have gotten a quarterback like TJ Finley or a transfer, and you know come in, be a little bit, maybe not be as good as a starter, but be a complacent guy. Like, he can come in and doesn't have to win the game for you, but at least be a game manager and finish the game if need be. And Taquan Roberson was not that, and it's unfortunate because he was a four-star quarterback coming out of high school. This is his third year in Franklin's system now. There's no reason why he shouldn't be ready to come into a game. Now, it is a tough situation, okay? And I don't put all the blame on him. I really don't. I kind of feel bad for him because it's a tough situation to kind of get your first meaningful playing time. At the same time, you're supposed to be a pretty good quarterback, and you're a backup at Penn State, which should mean something. You should be at least decent and be able to hit open receivers and be able to get the offense running well enough that you can at least snap the ball without a ton of false starts. And that didn't happen. That's what lost us the game. Iowa fans will tell you about how good they are. They're not that good. They're not the number 2 team in the country. I'll tell you right now. Um, they Iowa fans love to call themselves these corn-loving, waving at the hospital type people. They're not. Okay. Yeah, sure. It's a nice gesture. It's a cool tradition, but they booed our players when they were injured. Okay. And listen, Iowa does not run an up-tempo offense. If Iowa ran an up-tempo offense that was creating problems for Penn State, I can understand why they might be angry. But they huddle. They take the play clock down to like around 5 seconds. They don't create up-tempo issues for Penn State. And the players that were going down were some of the best players in the defense too, like Arnold Ebiketie. And then obviously P.J. Mustipher came out. He's out for the year, we'll talk a little bit about that. And then you look at just other guys like throughout the game. I can't even think of the top. Jaquan Brisker. Like, you're taking off the top guys on the defense really, and yeah, they came back in a couple plays later, but like that's not uncommon. It's just that they're banged up for a player. So just because they don't have a season-ending injury doesn't mean they're not actually hurt. And I really don't think it hurt Iowa at all if players had to be looked at for a little bit. I really don't. And so yeah, I think that Iowa fans and even Kirk Ferentz, I understand he wants to back his fan base up, but at the same time, he's been doing this for a while. He should understand that to be a little bit classy and respect injuries, because he should know, in my opinion, that those injuries weren't to slow him down, or even if they were, let's say even if he thought about it, he shouldn't have said like they smelled rat, because then you don't know if those injuries were real or not. You don't know if those injuries were real or not, and I think they were. I really do. I don't believe that Penn State was trying to do anything wrong, and so yeah, Iowa is a good spot because they're undefeated, and the rest of their schedule looks pretty cupcake-ish. They have a couple tough games against Nebraska, who's played a lot better, even though they haven't been able to finish against good teams. And then they have Wisconsin, who is still formidable, but obviously not the team that a lot of people thought they might be coming into this season. And so yeah, I could definitely see Iowa finishing 12-0. This kind of reminds me of like 2015 when they did really well. I think they went undefeated all the way until the Big Ten title game and lost to Michigan State in the Big Ten title game, where they didn't really have a tough schedule, but they were able to find a way to get to the Big Ten title, and they ended up losing. But that could happen again this year. I really think that whoever they will play coming out of the East, whether that's Ohio State, Michigan State, could even be us, because I think we're still in the running as long as we have Clifford. We'll talk a little bit about that in a few minutes, but I think that whoever they play in the Big Ten title game, they're going to lose by at least 3 scores. I really believe that. They're not that good. Their offense is inconsistent at best. Their defense is overrated. Yeah, they're able to create turnovers, but as soon as you put some athletes out there against them that can beat the guys they have, they can't stop them. They can't stop them. We proved that. If you put a good quarterback out there with good receivers and a solid O-line, you will be able to beat Iowa's defense without much of a problem. Okay, yeah, they might be doing a good job getting a couple interceptions in the game, but that only goes so far. And I think that for Iowa, if they really want to improve and get to that next level, they got to find a way to either recruit better or something. Because yes, they're a solid program. We know this. They've been for a while now in Kirk Ferentz, but if they want to try and compete with the likes of Georgia, Bama, and be a true number 2 team in the country, which they, in my opinion, are not, even though they're ranked second, then they need to be able to just be able to be more talented. They need to show me more. Okay, I don't think that they're going to win the Big Ten. They probably will win the West because the West is putrid, but we'll see. Yeah, so Penn State's outlook moving forward. So Penn State, it's good that we have a bye week this week. I think it's placed in a perfect spot. You don't have like an emotional game. Like you can take a step back halfway through the season and understand like where you're at, and then you got to get right game against Illinois. Now we don't know Clifford's status. We probably won't know until that Illinois game. From what it sounds like so far is that it's not too serious, but hopefully, even if he does come back, hopefully he won't be limited in any capacity. He'll be able to run and throw just as well as he did before. And listen, if they should beat Illinois even with Roberson, okay, they should be able to, or at least. I don't know. If we lose to Illinois with Roberson, then you could probably pack it up and assume that if Clifford doesn't come back, that we're finishing like 6-6. Because I'm not sure if we're beating anybody if we lose to Illinois with Roberson. But I think when you look at the rest of the schedule, if Clifford does come back, we should beat Illinois easily. Then we play Ohio State. Now that game is going to be the turning point for the season. If we lose that game, any hopes of making the playoff or winning the Big Ten are done. Okay. The hopes from that point would just be to make sure you win the last 3 games, which those last 3 games, or at least the 2 games against Michigan and Michigan State, are pretty tough. Then you got Rutgers, which should be pretty simple. But remember, Rutgers is better. They took Michigan pretty far, and they only lost by 7. So I think that if you lose to Ohio State, you're just kind of hoping for what we were in 2017 and 19, finish maybe 11-2, and then. If you beat Ohio State, then obviously the momentum changes all around. All of a sudden, you are probably the favorites in the East. You got to take care of business against Michigan State still, but all of a sudden that Ohio State team that has really troubled us for the last few years, which is, in my opinion, prevented us from becoming an elite team. Like if Ohio State wasn't in the Big Ten, we would be probably running the Big Ten, in my opinion. But Ohio State obviously is on a different level. And this year they've looked a little bit vulnerable. I still believe Ohio State is the normal Ohio State that we've known the last few years. Yes, they struggled earlier in the year. They lost to a top 10 team against Oregon. Like a lot of people make fun of them, but you realize like they lost to a top 10 Oregon team by 7 points. That's it. That's it. They lost a close game against a top 10 team. Okay, just about anybody can do that. Heck, Alabama didn't even lose to a top 10 team. They lost to a team that was unranked at the time in Texas A&M. So, like, trust me, Ohio State's still Ohio State, and going into Columbus is never easy. And I think when you look at Penn State coming into that game, it's just how well can we handle their offense? Because I trust our secondary this year, but still those guys that they have on that offense, they're elite guys. Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, Jackson Smith, and Jigba, 3 tremendous receivers. You're going to go up against talent all over the field when you play Ohio State. Their O-line is going to be good. And without Mustipher, I'm worried about, because they've been able to run the ball with Travion Henderson. Okay, I'm worried about the run game. I'm worried about if we're going to be able to basically, I think that it might end up being a shootout in that game. It might end up being like a 45-42 type game, maybe even like 2017 where it finished 39-38, something like that, where the offenses will just be clicking. If Clifford's back, if Clifford's not, then I think it's probably going to be an Ohio State blowout. But if Clifford does come back, I think it could be a good game without a doubt. It's just I'm a little worried about the defensive side of things for Penn State because I think that Ohio State could without a doubt run the ball very, very well. And without Mustafa, which he's probably, I don't know if he's our best D lineman because Hunter Ebiketie has been great for us, but he's definitely at D tackle, the number one D tackle, and that's a tough position to lose. And, well, at linebacker as well, I think we're strong at linebacker with Brooks and Smith and Curtis Jacobs, but I don't know how they'll match up against Ohio State. Ohio State's just, like I said, on a different level. I'm interested to see this season how they're going to do that. They're always the bar. They're always that team that you look at and say, okay, where are we at? How do we do against Ohio State? And if we can beat them, great. We can start thinking about playoff and winning the Big Ten title and possibly being in a rematch against the team that we just talked about in Iowa. But until then, unless we beat them, I doubt that we can start thinking about that. But yeah, I'm looking forward to that game. That'll change the season. No matter whether we win or we lose, that'll determine the rest of the season, in my opinion. And then from that point on, you have a game against Maryland, which should be a big revenge game from last year because, listen, I don't think that any Penn State fan likes Maryland. Maryland's just a scummy program. I don't like them. They have this inflated version of what they are. They're not good. They know they're not good, but they like to pretend that they're semi-competitive, and they're not. And they beat us last year. I'm not happy about it, and I want to give it back to them this year. And then after that, you got Michigan at home, and Michigan's definitely a lot better than what they showed last year and even in years past. I think that you can't really trust Harbaugh's teams because they have looked really good in the regular season, and then towards the end of the season, they kind of fall apart against like Ohio State or he has this bad record in big games, and it'll be interesting when he plays Penn State and Ohio State how well they'll be able to compete. And so yeah, I think we're going to beat Michigan as long as we have Clifford. I always throw that caveat in there because right now that's up in the air, but as long as we have Clifford, I think we'll beat Michigan. I think we're the better team, but especially since we're at home and it'll be a whiteout from what it sounds, so that'll be nice. And then after that happens, we got Michigan State and Rutgers, I believe. I could look at the schedule real quick. But yeah, Michigan State, a lot better team than I thought they would be this year. I still thought they'd be kind of rebuilding under Mel Tucker. He's done a great job. He's made them a top 10 team in year two. That's excellent. And Michigan State, without a doubt, will be no gimme game. They will be very tough and could very well lose that game. Hopefully we can take care of business against them. And then Rutgers, like I was saying earlier, you can't really overlook them too much, but Penn State should have the talent advantage and hopefully win that game relatively comfortably. So I think you're looking at the end of the season as maybe like a 10-2 record. If Clifford doesn't come back, then maybe like 7-5, 8-4. I think it's that big of a difference. That's just unfortunate the way it is, because if Levis was here, then I think that would be a lot. I think we would have beaten Iowa if Levis didn't transfer, which I don't blame Levis at all because he's on an undefeated SEC team in Kentucky right now, so he's a starter. So I don't blame him at all for leaving. But I wish Penn State was able to either develop the recruits they had in 2019 with Taquan Roberson and Michael Johnson, who ended up leaving, better, or they were able to get some transfer this offseason. They weren't able to do either one of those. So it's unfortunate that we didn't have a capable backup to come in and take care of business. And even if Clifford is out for the season, like that's what separates the good programs from the elite ones. Good programs have good starters, but then not much behind them. And the elite ones have 2 or 3 quarterbacks and come in and still do a really good job. Like in 2014 with Ohio State, J.T. Barrett went down in spring practice, or not J.T. Barrett, Braxton Miller went down in spring practice, and then J.T. Barrett came in and ended up being the starter for most of the season. And he did great, and then he got hurt against Michigan the last game of the year, and then Cardell Jones came in. It was the third string in the spring, and he ended up winning the national championship. So, like, I'm not saying that you have to be at that level, but at least have a capable backup. Come on. And then, you look at Oklahoma, Spencer Rattler. And by the way, Spencer Rattler, I don't know what's going on with him because he was projected to be a Heisman candidate, maybe number 1 overall pick. Now he's not even the starter on his own team, from what it sounds like. Caleb Williams. Now, Caleb Williams was an elite recruit coming out of high school, but that's the thing. Penn State needs to be able to get those kind of guys, be able to come in off the bench and lead a team well. And that's what separates Oklahoma from Penn State at the quarterback position, because Oklahoma has guys that can come in and that you can trust. So, anyways, yeah, I think that standings-wise in the Big Ten, we already kind of talked about that. Penn State with that loss, it's not too bad because it's a loss to a West team. They still control their own destiny, so that's good. And then on the Western side of things, Northwestern is doing really, really not well at all. I'm kind of surprised. I don't get why they are like an every other year type team. It's just weird how that program is. They could look really good one year, and then the next year they're trash. Pat Fitzgerald, I think he's a good coach, but I don't know exactly what's going on there at Northwestern. And so yeah, it's the national landscape. Definitely interesting. Alabama losing shakes things up. Georgia, number 1 team in the country right now. This might be the year they finally break through and win the national title. They've kind of been knocking on that door, I think, for a while now. They've been able to recruit really well. They've been able to put together some good seasons, but they haven't really been able to kind of be that Bama and end up winning the national title, which they very well may do that this year. Their defense is excellent, and their offense is pretty good as well. They have talent all over the field. You can definitely see the fruits of their recruiting efforts the past few years. And other than that, I think every other team is looking vulnerable other than Georgia. Ohio State's definitely looking a lot better. Oklahoma has had a ton of close games. I think it's only a matter of time before they lose. But who knows? This Caleb Williams, he might be the answer to some of their problems, even though I think a lot of their problems are in defense. And so, yeah, I think that the national landscape, without Clemson being a major player this year, with Ohio State having a loss, with Oklahoma struggling, Alabama having a loss, I think the parity is a lot better. I think it's a very exciting college football season, and I'm happy to be a part of it. I'm happy. Well, I'm not like officially a part of it, but I'm happy to be watching it. And I think Penn State still has a chance to accomplish some big things this season, and I'm looking forward to the rest of this season. All right, well, thank you guys. We are Penn State.